Okay, we are going live. Well, good afternoon. This is Toni Weel from not so sunny Florida, but that's all good. It's nice and warm here. We have with us Sarah from Ohio and our guest, and that's pretty exciting because I have been following her for a long time. She doesn't even know. But she always gives out so much beautiful information about health and healing. She's active in a variety of groups, and we can talk a little about that later. But what got my attention really good was that she's been building a fruit farm in British Columbia, Canada. And we always have people saying that, yeah, well, nothing grows here. I don't know what to eat. So I was like, we need to talk with Mariah. So that's her name. Mariah, we know her as Mariah Mazza, but I came across a post somewhere that said that was not your full name, but the name you use in all the groups that we are aware of. And if you want to look her up, I have 3 links for her in the description or the show notes. And one goes to the YouTube channel, the other one to Instagram, and the other one goes to her website. So there is a ton of great information there. I love her videos and her insights in health, of course. And yeah, Mariah, I'm very, very happy to have you here and to share about your fruit farm. And when I asked you about it, if you could talk about it, you said, I can talk endlessly about it. So we have about an hour.
Well,
yeah, I'm curious, what made you start that? I mean, when we look at your background, it looks like, it's getting cold already. And well, British Columbia is not the harshest climate in Canada, is it?
No, but British Columbia is quite large. So we've got Vancouver, which is mostly mildly temperate. We get into the Okanagan, which is like the desert of Canada. It's pretty warm, harsh winters or summers, and then the winters are very cold. And then we get into northern sort of BC where it gets pretty cold. So but I did want to say thank you for that lovely introduction. And I absolutely do know who you are and that we've been in contact over the years. And my original name is Maria, but I've been using Mariah for so long. And it was a nickname of mine growing up. So, I mean, I just go by both. So I just wanted to clarify that. But let's get into the growing.
Yeah, what made you go that route well, we know about being a fruitarian, but feeling that you could actually build a fruit farm in Canada?
Well, I do live in the Okanagan. It's the fruit capital of Canada. And so, like I said, the summers are very hot. I'm getting, local watermelons, local peaches. So a lot of fruits do grow here. It's just when winter hits, there's 6 months of no food. So if you don't have preservations, you have to rely on the grocery store basically, or an indoor growing setup, which I'm also working on and I can talk about. I've set myself up with some microgreen for the winter, and I sprout, and so for those cold months, it's just the fireplace, the freezer fruit that I've preserved from all the trees and the local fruit, and then and then the what I can grow indoors. But so everything does absolutely grow here. It's just not ongoing like other climates where you can get fruit for 12 months out of the year. It's about 6 months, maybe 5 months out of the year that we can actually get fruit. And then the cool season crops grow here still for about 8 months out of the year. So we can still get all our lettuces and peas and all the cool season things, brassicas and whatnot. So what made me decide to start a fruit forest, or a food forest is what I'm calling it, because I'm just using completely natural methods, and nothing, gets shipped out. I don't scrape up my leaves and throw them in a bag and ship them away. I use everything for mulch. Anything I weed, I use that for mulch. But what made me start it is just my diet. I mean, because I'm so, into eating as local as possible and as healthy as possible. That's everything that grows, basically. I mean, the healthiest foods on the planet are the ones that grow. So I have to grow them. I really have no choice. I mean, if I want the best food available, I have to grow the food. And I also believe it's my way of giving back, and contributing to a better world, better climate. Just every year I plant fruit trees. It's just something I've been doing for the last 12 to 15 years. It's like, even when a few temporary living situations that I was in where I didn't even have anywhere to grow, I would still propagate and plant fruit trees and have them in pots and give them away, or plant them at people's places. It's just, for the last 12, 15 years, I've been planting trees every year, hands down, no matter what. And I've moved a lot. I've lived off grid. I planted a food forest over there. I originally moved to the Okanagan to begin farming, which turned into fruit farming. It evolved into fruit farming once I learned about, that most of the foods I originally thought were healthy weren't. So I ended up managing fruit orchards and growing fruit more, so focusing on that. But that's why I originally left the city, was just to know where all my food came from. So I wanted to be involved with that. And then it just slowly kind of evolved into fruit and lettuces, and growing like whatever I can grow here. So yeah, the reason why I started this food forest is just to give back, and to have the healthiest food possible, and to replenish the land too, because I'm in this place that I just moved to has only been here 2 years now. Hopefully it's a long term, but things always happen. It seems like every time I plant an orchard, and this has happened 3 times now in the past 10 years, I've actually planted entire orchards. And once the fruits start coming to, once they start producing, a few years later, I have to move. So that's just the way it is. And I don't get upset, because I just know wherever I go, there's going to be abundance of nature and fruit and trees, and because that's just what I do. So
what kind of fruit trees do you have?
Okay, so I have plums, pears, apples, cherries. I have 2 dwarf cherries and 1 regular. I have a lot of berry bushes. I've planted Saskatoon berries, which they're like wild blueberries. They're amazing. But these Saskatoon berries, I do a plant rescue, I call it, as well. So I trip around the forest here, and any Saskatoons that I find that are young, that are just going to get trampled, or they're just not in the best place anyways, I'll dig them up and bring them home, and just give them, the best conditions possible so they can flourish. I have, what are those called? Haskap berries, blueberries, raspberries, and then other fruit trees. I have a few nut trees. So I have a couple hazelnuts, and walnuts don't do so well here, but I've been trying with walnuts. There is one local one in town that seems to be growing and doing okay, but they're very finicky. I think that basically sums it up. Oh, I have apricots as well. They grow really well here, apricots. In fact, they grow wild all over. There's wild apple trees, wild apricots that the bears keep planting every year through their poop. And so when I go on my walks, I see these large wild trees, and I don't tend to pick the fruit, though I leave it for the bears, because there's not a lot for them around here with all the forest fires and things that keep happening. So Yeah. And then I tend to only plant things that produce food. That's my thing. But I did plant a large willow across the street, not on my land, but on a vacant lot. So I've been walking over there every day and nurturing and tending to that as well. But that's another thing. I just wanted to have a nice willow tree for the birds and for privacy and whatnot. Yeah, so I think that's about it for the fruits. And then I also garden, of course. So I grow, squash, and I grow things I don't even eat. I grow garlic. I don't really consume garlic myself, but I grow it. I'll give it away. I grow it every year. Onions, same thing. Potatoes. I just grow whatever can grow here, all the cool season crops like the broccoli and kale and lettuces and whatnot. So if it produces fruit or food, I will, and if it's edible, I will plant it.
Now, what are the biggest problems you experience with planting fruit trees that, any diseases or that they just don't take on where you plant them? Do you need
Um,
to plant certain things together or away from each other? Do you
you
plant
know,
more than one?
well, I've just been sort of intuitively gardening. I know there's a ton of information on the internet, and I used to research and I used to listen to it, and I want to mention I'm also growing grapes, lots of grapes. But so far, I haven't run into many difficulties, but my trees are all quite young. I had my pear tree produce 3 pears this year. I had to take off most of them because I wanted the tree to put more of the energy into its root system and into the vegetative growth than I did the fruit. But I mean, my grapes have been a bit nitrogen deficient. The soil here isn't the best. I mean, I am in a rocky mountain town. This used to be an old gold miner town, actually. And the soil's very compact and very rocky. But because I have such an abundance of compost, because all the food I eat is natural food that can be composted, I am able to, build the soil back and replenish it quite nice. So I haven't noticed, I believe I'm creating the correct conditions for my plants because I haven't had any issues yet. Besides the grapes being a bit nitrogen deficient, but I've been working on that. There's a local coffee shop in town, so I asked him for his coffee grinds. I could be in a bucket, which I have, and put it on the plants. And, I'm trying natural methods, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think the key is just to keep mulching and to keep giving the plants compost or just, healthy nutrition through, like, sometimes I just juice, like if I happen to juice and I have leftover juice, I'll give that to the plants. Like I'm always giving them stuff and they just seem to thrive. I seem to do really well with it. It's my calling.
Yeah, you give
That's,
them love, and that is really important.
hmm
I actually, so go ahead,
No, I
Sarah.
was going to say, the one thing you said too about having to move every couple of years, you get everything established, and then you have to move.
Yeah.
You are supposed to do that. Then, like what I was saying before we talked, it's like divine time. You're supposed to be where you are, and you're planting these fruit forests, and then moving on, and then doing the same thing in another area. I mean, I think that has to be your purpose because it keeps happening. And I do hope you get to stay in one place for a little bit if that's what you are hoping for. But I think that as somebody looking from the outside in, I think that's very interesting. And as soon as you said it, I was like, well, that's what you're supposed to do.
That's a great
Even
point.
though it's hard.
I
But
didn't think of it that way. Here I am being a little selfish and being a little upset about it, but I still find abundance everywhere I go anyways. And I am leaving behind these amazing trees and yeah, for other people and for the land. So yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we
Different.
all get that way. Like we all have our blinders on and we're always like, I can't understand why this is happening to me. And this just doesn't make sense. And I mean, I struggle with that too. Like even with our farm right now, just like, why is this happening? And it's all opened up and now it seems like it's closing and, but it's just really trusting the process. And as long as you're being virtuous and, you're doing everything with good intention and love, then all you can do is trust the process. Every time I do try to really figure it out and overthink it and try to control the situation, things always seem to blow up in my face. Always. I mean, they could be something as tiny as like, oh, well, maybe you should do this, but it was something that would benefit me or something. It blows up in my face. So that's always been a lesson I've had to learn in life too. So
That's a great
I
point.
I
like that.
think it's just amazing to hear that. And I was like, holy crap, that's it. But then my next thing was, do you use fruit guilds? And I don't even know if you know what those are, but I was going to ask if you have those.
Fruit guilds?
Yeah, they're like, so you say you have like and I might be getting this all wrong, but you have an apple tree. And then below the apple tree, you have blueberries growing, you have some mint growing, some garlic, and they all work together to help the apple tree. And the apple tree then helps the blueberries, and they're called guilds. So you plant guilds all along the bottom of the apple tree, and they help with weeding, they help keep pests away, they provide each other nutrients. So they're called fruit guilds. And I didn't know if
Oh,
you have heard of
okay.
those.
I didn't know there was a name to them, but yes. So what I've done actually, and this is just like I said, I intuitively garden and I intuitively grow, but I plant the tree and then, yeah, I have like, for example, with my hazelnut tree, they've got mint all over. And I don't know if I'm, doing it correctly. I know like carrots love tomatoes and I know there's companion planting and whatnot, but with every tree, it each has its own little bed that I surround with rocks, and then different plants are in there. So like my apricot tree has blueberry in there and onion, and like my pear tree has rose hips planted below, and it's a climbing rose that climbs up the tree. All my trees have different plants planted at the base, and then I mulch it all and I surround it with rocks, and I'm continually adding to the soil and, just intuitively gardening. But yes, so I do have fruit guilds. So
Yeah, and see, again, there's another point right there, is that you intuitively already know how to do it as well.
yeah,
So it's like you're the fruit forest starter, and you're just moving all around the country or the world maybe.
all over BC. Yeah, so it's been,
Yeah.
I've lived in one place off grid where I planted a food forest. I lived there about 2 years. And when I left, miraculously, a lot of I just went back there the other day because I still have contact with that place. And the willow trees are huge. I planted about 4. The grapes are still thriving. Like all the vegetation is still doing pretty good after I got it established. And then it hasn't had a lot of maintenance and care, and it's still doing pretty well. And like there's just a few different places I've lived around the Okanagan, all different areas that I'm just amazed at how well vegetation does, or fruit trees do, after you care for them properly for the first 2 years.
That's fantastic. And a lot of people can't get the vision, they can't see it, they can't start it, they just don't have an understanding of it. And so it just goes to show, like right there, you start it and then somebody else can maintain it. And a fruit forest doesn't need a whole bunch of maintenance because it's permaculture, it's permanent agriculture. So fruit forest is the way to go. And I've been hearing all these things on YouTube, Instagram, that kind of stuff, where they're like, well, if you want to destroy the earth, you should be vegan because they destroy all the trees, all the other thing and everything. And I said, in all my comments, I say, well, we shouldn't be vegans. We should be frugivores. We should have fruit forests that provides shelter for animals, that regrows every tree, gives it to you. Like, and people do not have a knowing of about fruit forest. And there needs to be so much more information out there, because I think that's where we came from, and we were taken away from the forest, and we need to return back to it.
I fully agree with you there. I believe that this earth was just covered in it, because it's amazing how abundant everything is and how everything just becomes everything, for lack of a better description, that when even in like a small space where you may only have like 6 to 8 fruit trees, like you can create so much life. Like my compost is beaming with like insects, and the birds come back because, you know, there's moisture and water and trees, and it's amazing how much more life there is in my area, my space, compared with, you know, the other areas that I walk through, and we can each bring that back. And I do believe what you said there, that, you know, we were taken away from our natural habitats. Like everything was somehow destroyed or just slowly died. But, you know, we used to walk among like an abundance of fruits, kind of like when I'm walking through the forest here and there's all these wild fruit trees, and every year the bears, they eat from them, and then they're eating the apricots and the wild apples and the wild berries, and then in their poop they're pooping all over the place, and new ones are sprouting up. And, you know, that land, thankfully, where I walk is left, you know, it hasn't been ravished by fire yet, and it hasn't been because it's private property, and it's a very large piece that it gets left alone to just be its natural self. And it's amazing like how the land can replenish itself so quickly, if we just let it. It's us humans that are kind of preventing nature from flourishing.
Mm-hmm. And a fruit forest too is a live, thriving forest with green leaves, and you know, it's alive. Whereas a lot of the forest fires come from, if they're natural, come from the dead, the decay, the overgrowth in the forest, the falling of the tree, you know, all that stuff, where it hasn't been a properly maintained forest. And with a fruit forest, it's more likely to be maintained properly, because the animals are going to be in there cleaning up the grounds and doing everything they're going to do. So therefore, having fruit forests can prevent natural forest fires and stuff like that as well.
Oh,
In the
absolutely.
comments in here, yes, in the comments in here, Ingrid did say that if she could, she would like to also grow too. But I'm growing that shampoo ginger lily plant indoors, and Toni has it growing rampant in her yard down in Florida, but it won't grow in my area. So I'm going to try to grow it indoors over the winter. The same thing with like lemons and limes and stuff like that too. But even if you can start out small, just a little bit here and there, everything just helps. It helps your mind state and everything. But Toni is growing stuff even in her small little area there too. Toni, what do you have? Mangoes and
I
stuff
have
like that?
mangoes, papayas, berries, blueberries, agave, figs. I have an avocado that is not growing. I have 3 citrus trees that are not really growing. But for the fruit, the papaya was the most important. It's a young tree. I have a tree. This is the 3rd year, and I have to trim it. There is a big branch that's actually almost hanging on the ground, and if it bears fruit, because they are so huge, they hang on the ground, and it is right at the street. So someone has been stealing all my mangoes.
Oh.
I only had a few, and I actually had a tree that was that was the first year full with papaya. It was totally amazing. And those fruits were, from the next day, they were all gone. So people see it and figure they can, just take it. But that tree didn't survive the what is it, the last hurricane. The soil was too wet and the tree was fairly young, so not well established, and we lost it. Couldn't save it. But now when I look at the mango trees, so many new leaves have been coming on already. And it's like, okay, if I have to trim, where do I start? See, that's something I have absolutely no clue. But it gives me the most amazing mangoes. They are big, and if you let them ripe on the tree, oh my God, they are so juicy. I never had a juicy mango before. I mean, a little bit, but not that when you cut it open, it already, drips all over your hands. It's like, and so sweet. And I talked about it on my podcast a lot, Mariah, is that in the last few years, I mean, we're talking a lot about eating ripe fruit, but it always, okay, when is it ripe? When can we pick it? And without, really knowing how that works, I was checking on my figs, and it was like, wow, it has some figs. So of course I have to touch them. And one fell in my hand, and it was like, oh, that seems ripe. And that is how I learned that if you have to really rip off the fruit, it's not ripe at all. And you just have to wait until, with a light touch, it just falls in your hand, and that is the exact time to eat it. With the figs, it was if I would have left it on, and it happened when I missed one, if I leave it on, then the next day or 2 days after, I checked it, it burst open and then it falls off, and then, the birds and the critters get it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought it was so beautiful. So of course I had to do the same test with the one or two papayas that were left. I had 2 papaya trees. One did survive, but it was in a pot, and it actually bears fruit also. That with the papaya, it just, you touch it and it falls in your hand. And I know, commercially you can't work that way. But I found that so very few people know that, because when it was, I live in a small community here. It's a 55 plus community. And we have our own Facebook group. So when I mentioned that my mangoes disappeared overnight, there is someone who has a really huge mango tree, and he brought me quite a few mangoes. That was so sweet, but they were not ripe. And he was like, oh, they ripen, just leave them out for a few days. And it is, I have been, call it educating people on ripe fruit, and if you have your own trees, when to harvest. And I think that was so beautiful for me to learn. That I'm still amazed, and that is when I was even more convinced that for us, fruit is just the way to go. If you leave it longer on the tree because you don't need it, then it falls off and the animals get it, and they need it. So it all works together.
Exactly, yeah. The animals always know when the fruit is ripe. That's what I've noticed. It's like when the wasps start taking little bites out of my strawberries, that's when I pick them, because I've given them enough. They've got the whole compost. They're always trying to take more and more. But yeah, the birds know when the strawberries they'll wait. They wait until they're perfectly ripe. And then they start going for them, because they know that's when it's the most nutritious, when it's the most tasty. And so if you kind of watch the wildlife, you can kind of share a little with them, but take some too. I have sorry. I have this pear tree, and like I said, it only produced 3 pears this year, but I was looking at them. I'm like, I wonder if I should pick those. And because they look, it's about time. And then one fell off, and then the other 2 fell off a couple hours later, and all 3 were sitting there perfectly on the ground. And I picked them up and tried one, and they were perfect.
But that is so beautiful how that works. And I didn't even realize it when I had I lived here in the United States for 20 years. Before that, we had our own property in the Netherlands, in the northern part of the Netherlands. And I was never much about weeding and, letting things grow and being amazed what comes up out of the ground now. And all of a sudden I had at first I thought it was a bush, and then it was like, well, it starts looking like a tree. And then it has these little flowers and these little berries, and I had no clue what it was. And somebody said, you have a currant tree there. Well, I didn't plant it. I did not. So, but okay, I had a currant tree there. And it was, I mean, that thing was, at least 9-10 foot high, at least, and full with these black berries. And I was like, well, maybe we should, harvest them and make some marmalade or what out of it, or jams. And the next day they were all gone. There was absolutely not one left. So the birds came out at night, weird, and we never found it, never saw anything. And that is the same with my cherries. I think I had a tree full of cherries waiting until they ripened. I think I got 1 or 2 cherries from it. The rest was the birds.
Yeah.
They knew they were ripe before I had a clue.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I didn't have much of a clue, back then. We used to have apple trees, and yeah, you needed an apple, you go to the tree and then the one falls off and there you go, you have your apple. So it was always interesting, but it's only the last few years that I see how the trees are giving us life, and I keep being amazed by it.
Yeah, it is amazing. I did want to circle back quickly to the comment about the forests and how they're not being managed properly. And that's why we're getting these fires and things, because the fires are so prevalent around here in BC, Canada. Like, we had a horrific, they call it fire season now. It's like a flu season, but they monocrop the conifers, and those aren't, even, I believe, native to the area, but because they monocrop and they just plant these trees because they do so well without maintenance, it causes, a lot of issues. And I do believe that we used to have a lot of diversity. And so I've been looking at the areas, because where I created the food forest off grid a few years ago, there was a forest fire that ripped through there before I created the food forest. And that you notice that all the trees burned, except sometimes, like in some areas, the deciduous trees, they actually didn't burn because they have so much more moisture and water like surrounding them. So there was, what type of deciduous trees? They were poplars and another type, but the vegetation in those areas were saved, and then everywhere else was all burnt and black, and just where they monocropped all the. And I didn't mean to change the subject entirely, but that was just part of the last conversation, and I just wanted to mention that, because I just think that the forest management is just terrible to just plant these conifers and nothing else. Like, it's almost like they're setting us up for sabotage, but if I didn't know better. But anyways, yeah, back to the fruit forests and whatnot, and the ripe fruit and the animals knowing when it's ripe. I mean, they have these instincts that are just so incredible, and I guess it's their sight too, and they just know. And if I'm not careful, all the birds will take my strawberries. Sometimes and I wanted to mention too, I have a fig tree, because they do well here, but if their roots freeze, then they die. So I actually have, it's in a big pot, and I don't even know if I'm going to get the pot into my door this year, because I had to transplant it. And I get ripe figs every year. They're amazing. And I just think you're so lucky to have figs. Like, they're actually one of my favorite fruits.
I had a friend over, and I walked her out, and we walked by the fig tree, and I saw a few that were ripe, and I gave her one, and she said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, it's a fig. Can you eat that?" the only figs he had ever seen was those dried figs, and it didn't look anything like it. And, I don't use any pesticides, of course, or anything else. And she said, can I eat it? Yeah, you can eat it like, straight from the tree. Or it's actually more of a bush. And she was amazed. Just so people are only used to what they can find in grocery stores. And
was gonna say,
I have a
sorry.
tiny piece of land here. I mean, really, like a postage stamp. But I'm not even allowed to put trees without permission, put trees in the ground. So only my mango tree is in the ground. And I think I have a banana tree too. Didn't have bananas yet. The rest is all in pots. And I was like, hey, if I can do it on this little piece of land and it can grow in pots, then go for it. You will not get as much, as you can. And I still believe that plants should actually be in the soil to be even more beneficial for us. But sometimes, it's just not an option.
Right. We can only do the best of what we have available to us, and you're doing it. And the other thing I think too is the plants have to have rainwater. We shouldn't be watering them with our garden hose. So if possible, try to use your rainwater.
Yeah, good thing here is we do get a lot of rain, but we have a dry season, and then you have months, there's no rain at all. And I had to water them. Now I have actually a whole house water filter system, and yes, it has salt in it. And I was kind of worried, the days that we do have to water them, it is filtered water. But maybe trying to catch more of the rainwater, because when it rains here, we get quite a bit.
Well, again, it's only doing with what you have available to you. I mean, that's all we can do, period.
Yeah.
So do the best you can.
Yeah, always. Mariah, would you mind answering a health question?
Absolutely. I'll do my best.
Okay, it was, let me see, where is it? How to keep the weight on while on the raw food diet. She or he, I don't know, is eating 80% fruit, 20% nuts, seeds, and greens. My mind feels good on this diet, but the weight just falls off me and I become physically weak.
Well, basically, we need to learn what our natural human diet really consists of. And this is what I see a lot in the fruit and raw food and health community, which is really concerning because, and I'm not saying that I have all the answers or that my way is a highway. It's not my way. But we need to, like with plants, we need to give our body the correct conditions in order for it to thrive. And we oftentimes we think we know what those correct conditions are. But when people have issues putting on weight, it's generally, as most people know, due to malabsorption issues. So they're not absorbing the nutrition from their food properly. But there's an underlying root cause for that. So you got to, examine the diet. And right away when I heard 20% greens and nuts and seeds, well, first of all, to heal malabsorption issues, we want to keep our fats, our overt fats, quite low, because all our food, all the natural foods, they naturally do have fats. So even if we're not eating overt fats every day, we're still getting 6 to 8% or something like that of fat just from, even apples have fat, lettuce has fat. But back to creating the correct conditions long term. So what I've learned and what I believe is that, first of all, we have to heal malabsorption issues. We have to give the body correct conditions to heal, and the correct conditions to heal are the same conditions that maintain health. The same conditions that maintain health also are the conditions that will heal the body. And we are frugivores by design, and our body requires, by volume, about 50% leafy greens to 50% fruits. And so it's very important to eat our leafy greens because they provide a lot of nutrition that the fruits don't. And it's very important to eat our fruits as well. But to heal the malabsorption issues, I mean, giving the body exactly what it needs, and learning how to listen to the body as well. I mean, there's so many factors that go into health, and that's why we run the support group, because there's so much to teach people, because it's not really rocket science, but it's like we've lost our way. And so people think, oh, I'm just going to eat fruit only, and I'm going to eat fruit only for like 6 months or a year, or I'm just going to be a one-sided fruitarian. And you know, that's all great, but the body's not getting everything it needs if we only do fruit. We also need, you know, about 10% nuts, seeds, overt fats, not daily, but overall. And people also, they're looking at our diet like, I need to get in these certain nutrients and these certain foods every day, but health doesn't really work that way. It's more of a holistic, we become healthy more holistically. So it's like what we do overall over a period of time. So like people often run into problems, you know, they think, oh, I'm B12 deficient, and they'll start taking B12 every single day, you know, or they think, oh, I'm a fruitarian, I need to eat fruits, and all they'll eat is fruit every single day. But the body's not at that point getting everything that it requires. It requires the leafy greens. The leafy greens offer alkalinity. They offer they help build our jaw muscles. They help build strong teeth. They clean the teeth. They help, balance out the sugars from our healthy fruits, the healthy fruit sugars, because fruits absolutely are so healthy for us. And so, I mean, long story short, I would say that, so this person that's having problems putting on weight, an overall examination of, you know, all their lifestyle and dietary habits would be in order, and then to just bring those into balance. So a lot of people do feel that, you know, they need to eat mostly fruit, and then they lack on the greens, and those offer so many nutrients for us, and the body needs those to thrive. Or maybe they, you know, they're depleting themselves in ways that they don't realize. Like if we don't have enough vital nerve energy to heal our issues, you know, the body needs energy to heal. And sometimes people deplete that energy without realizing. But when you're healing, like, you need to rest. When the body's, you know, asking for rest, you need to rest. Napping's important. That can help with the healing process. So many things. So basically, I mean, I could say it's one thing or another thing, but I don't truly know, because I don't know this person's complete dietary lifestyle habits and choices. But what I can say is that we just need to give the body everything that it actually requires. Like the plants don't thrive if they don't have all the correct conditions in place. And that's what we need to do. We need to put the correct conditions in place for the body to heal. And there's so much misinformation in the health community that people are swimming in worlds of confusion, when it is actually quite simple. But it's not overly complicated, but we've kind of lost our natural instincts to know, unfortunately. So I mean, this person who is dealing with the malabsorption issues, I would definitely just kind of revisit things and try and bring things into balance, and eat an abundance of, you know, eat a nice fruit. And we have to eat enough too. I mean, so, you know, we shouldn't just be sitting down and eating an orange and thinking that that's a meal. You know, you need to eat fruit grows in abundance on the trees, because we're meant to sit down and, you know, eat a good sized meal of maybe 8 to 9 oranges, or eat until you're comfortably full, and then that's a meal. And then you stop and give your body the digestive rest, and you don't eat again until you're hungry. And the next meal, you know, could be leafy greens. We do need a bit of variety. And one-sided fruit eaters often have issues with malabsorption, unfortunately. And I'm not saying this person is a one-sided fruit eater, but if they're only giving themselves, you know, about 20% leafy greens and nuts and seeds, they're predominantly just eating fruits. And so it's not completely imbalanced there. And then I don't know the other lifestyle and dietary choices, but yeah, I guess just getting the correct information. And I've worked very hard over many years, and I used to I went through an entire year on all fruit. I went through, fruit only. I went through many juice cleanses. I went through many different modalities trying to heal myself. And then once I kind of learned a bit more new information presented itself, I realized, the errors of my ways, and I managed to heal the issues that, prolonged because I just wasn't quite getting it right. I wasn't quite doing the diet properly. So yeah, that's a long-winded explanation or answer.
Well, it has the information that we need. And I have to admit that for the longest time, I did not eat enough greens. And first of all, I'm not big in salad eating. But lately, I've been adding some more greens to my diet because I can live on fruit only. But I realized my diet wasn't balanced because I keep cheating, if you want to call it cheating, but eating the foods that I know I should not eat. For me, the healing process actually started and that was Dr. Morse, because I was you call it raw vegan, but I was not on high fruit. I was on high nuts and seeds. The delicious things that you can make with nuts. It was not about eating 2-3 nuts once in a while. It was like a lot of nuts. I bought those things in bulk, and oh my God, I was so sick, and I got sicker. And that was when Dr. Morse actually said, leave the nuts and the seeds out.
Yeah.
And for me, I still cannot eat it. It's too high fat because I gain weight very easily. I cannot eat avocados either. So I'm like, I stick with the fruit and I add the salads once in a while, and that's it. And then I do feel pretty good. Now I came into this whole way of eating with severe arthritis. I had for immigration vaccinations like for polio and a few others. I forgot the name of it. And it started to go downhill from there.
Yeah.
So it's still, I feel that with a balanced diet, my body will do what it needs to do. But I came in it, like I said, with severe arthritis and psoriasis.
So
And
there's
yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to mention a key piece to the puzzle because we do see a lot of people healing, arthritis and this inflammation. It's basically inflammation, but one key piece to the puzzle that so many health groups overlook, and it's so simple to incorporate, is just drinking adequate amounts of water every day.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I can't believe how much it's helped me, on an empty stomach, first thing in the morning, I drink 2 of these before I even have my first meal of fruit. And this is, fresh, clean water. Because the solution for pollution, which is what the inflammation is, it's a pollution in the body, is dilution. And that's what Lauren always says. And it's true. And, we wouldn't naturally be drinking this much water. I'm not saying that we're meant to drink water. We are frugivores. We're not meant to drink a lot of water, but because our diets have been so dehydrating for the course of our lifetimes, like we've been eating crackers and cakes and just all these foods that steal water. Like people don't realize that when you eat a cracker and it's all dry and it comes out all moist, that's because the body is, slowly building this chronic dehydration issue because it's stealing water from throughout the body, right? And it's using that to hydrate it and to eliminate it safely, because if it came out like crackers, that would hurt, right? So we all deal with chronic dehydration. And the absolute key that so many fruitarians even overlook, I did for the first 4, 5, 6 years of my journey. I thought, I have a high fruit diet. I drink, I don't need water. And I was always hydrophobic. I always hated water. I didn't even want to drink it. In fact, it took me a while to, but now I drink 3 liters a day consistently, and I'm hoping to get to a gallon just because, and I don't think we need to do that forever once we've healed all our health issues, and which I have, but but the hydration has just really helped so much. So if people can just drink more water, no matter what diet they're on, like a lot of water, that really helps, because we all suffer from chronic dehydration issues, and so many issues stem from that. But yeah, you knew I was going to say that.
Yeah, Maria, but Mariah, you are so right, because I think Sarah and I, we always talk about it, and there will always be people saying, yeah, but the right water is in fruit, and you don't need water. And I'm like, I see the problems with myself. If I don't drink enough, I get cramps in my legs at night. I get constipation is one thing, and yes, I have more pain. But I have to say, and I spoke with Lauren about that, it's like, how do you do it? How do you get 1 to 2 gallons of water in? She said, I just put it in front of me next to my computer, and I know what is out there. I have to drink that before noon.
Well, I have like little rules that I make for myself, little healthy rules, because a little discipline goes a long way. But on an empty stomach in the morning, I don't allow myself to eat until I've drinking 2. So if I got 2 liters, I'm happy, but I'm still struggling to get a gallon in. I get 3 liters in a day, but so for 2, and so I have to drink that before I can eat, and I love to eat. So I definitely get that in so I can have a meal. And then I have my fruit meal, and I eat enough so I'm comfortably satisfied and I'm not left craving stuff. And then between lunch and dinner, I drink another liter, and hopefully I can drink another, but that doesn't always happen. And then I have my meal, my big salad meal. That's like a family of 4 would eat. But
Well,
I was going to say that we've talked a lot too, Toni, where everybody knows that I do not like drinking water. I mean, I will carry that water bottle with me all day long, and I will barely drink it. So it is a force for
most.
me. Yes, I do.
The ones that are hydrophobic, like I was, they need it the most.
Yes. And I tell you what, that one, I cannot remember what it was, Toni, but when Dr. Morse had the guest on, and she did that talk about our kidneys and stuff like that. It's now, I guess, open to where the public can listen to it now too. But that really finally like unlocked my mind to know why and why I would still need it. And I'm very high fruit and high fruit juice and all that other stuff. But I still think I'm missing another link to it. And I'm also not, I'm not a big salad eater either, but I will eat like, what's it called? Butter lettuce. I do love butter lettuce. So I stick to the very soft leafy greens when I do eat them. And I do not eat a bunch of vegetables, but I will still partake in a potato or a sweet potato, maybe once, twice a week, something like that. But no, mainly I stick to just all fruits in the first place. And my favorite is definitely oranges and orange juice, but I do love watermelon juice and things like that too. Another thing that has helped me drink water too is I squeeze lemon in it. And so then I can at least drink it. One more other point I wanted to put in there too is a lot of the people that do come to Toni and maybe come to you, we have people on different ends of the spectrum on the calls or on the show. And that's either people that have been on this lifestyle and are thriving on it, or the people who are just starting and, for them to start drinking 1 gallon of water or something right away. I don't want to say could be damaging to the body. It's going to help the body, but I guess in how quickly you consume that water when your body may not be used to that. So my recommendation is always, kind of start out slow and then build up to it. And that's with anything.
That's a good recommendation.
Mm-hmm. And then the same thing with the fruits. Build in slow to it, because at first you most likely are going to have diarrhea. Your stomach is probably going to hurt in the very beginning, that kind of stuff. But we have the other people on the other part of it that are very sick, and they need that attention immediately, and they need guidance right away too. So if you ever are in question, the people that are listening or in the chat, please reach out to Toni, reach out to Dr. Morse's clinic, reach out to Mariah, reach out to Lauren, or go to grapegate.com and find somebody to work with. There's no need to suffer in silence. Everybody tries to do their best in the Facebook groups or even in these chats, but sometimes you really do need one-on-one help. And that's the way to find the underlying issues of what really could be going on.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention too, because I believe Toni brought this up about the fats. I mean, all our natural foods have invert fats in them, so we're still getting, you know, adequate fats. People are so afraid if they don't eat nuts and seeds daily that they're not going to get enough fat in their diet, but it's my experience as well. And I keep having this reminder here and there, because I began the first, you know, 5, 6, 7 years of my journey with Arnold Ehret's type of information, where he didn't advocate to eat nuts and seeds and fats so much, just sparingly, and maybe in winter months and very sparingly, because they're very complex. They're very, very complex and can be mucus forming if you overdo them. And so, yeah, Dr. Morse too, his suggestion to minimize or eliminate the nuts and seeds for a while is a good one. And I just learned that lesson again, because I was, you know, it's so easy to go over with the fats. It's just so easy. You make a salad dressing and you have maybe a little wrap with some fats in it, and it's like, bam, you're over. And then you don't feel good the next day. You've got the food hangover, and your body just does not like that complexity. So yeah, it's just very easy to overdo the fats, and to try and keep it under 10% is such a struggle. It's almost worth it to just not. What I found that works for me is I do a rotation now. I do a overt fat-free day. Then I do, you know, I'll do every second day or every third day where I'll allow myself, you know, a dressing made with fats in it. And then I find, you know, dressings that are fat-free that I like still for the other days, but it's not easy for those.
The other thing I like too is, if the food is hard to get to naturally, that's something we are supposed to eat limitly, or with limits on it. So like we talked this in our last podcast last week. Walnuts are extremely hard to get to, and a sunflower seed takes work. That's why if I ever am going to eat them, I always try to eat the ones that are shelled. That way I'm not sitting there handful after handful of doing it. But yeah, I mean, if it's naturally, like you said, when you sit underneath an apple tree, there's all these apples there. So great, eat them. But if you go to a walnut tree and you're going to try to get some walnuts, there's a whole process you have to go through to get to it. So that tells you that we probably shouldn't eat those in large quantities.
Yeah, nature always sends us clear messages, but we've lost our way, and we've kind of lost how to interpret nature sometimes, you know? Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Oh,
Absolutely.
I thought it cut out after, sometimes Zoom after the hour mark. It's gone. Like,
yeah. I was walking back home, and I went under the pawpaw tree, and I collected 7 seeds for you. So I'll be getting your information, and I'll send them out to you.
Oh, I'm so excited. Maybe I can send something back. I'll think about it. You know, there's so many roots that I'm growing here that I actually forgot to even mention. It's funny the way it is like that. You know, you do I have what do you call those? Goji berries. Those grow abundantly here. And
Toni, I don't know if the I can't even say it. Pawpaw tree will even grow in that hot of a climate, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if you want a full tree in your home. We're gonna have to raise the roof, honey.
I do. I have a black walnut tree, and that was planted the year before I came here. That is now almost in February, 19 years ago. It was like, maybe 5 inches tall. Now it's twice as tall as the house. And it is huge. It is only a few feet away from the house. It does bear the walnuts, the black walnuts. They're not edible. Yeah. When I finally could, one that fell on the ground, when I finally could get it open, and I needed all kinds of tools to even get it open, there was a shriveled up something in there. So I don't know, and the tree looks healthy.
Yeah, they stink. We have so many of them, and we try to get rid of them because they're poisonous to horses. So I
Yeah.
don't like them in our area, but they're all over where we live. That
Yeah.
and red maple trees are poisonous to horses. Do you have maple trees too, Mariah?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean,
Mhm.
I have one that's growing here. It's actually seated itself at the bottom of my, what do you call it? My apricot tree. And I'm like, oh, you're so beautiful, but I'm going to have to move you someday. Probably next spring I'll dig it out. I know that they have like really long roots though, and it's really tough to transplant them, but they grow in such abundance here. When I walk around town, there's just beautiful large maples everywhere. Yeah, but I've got a few in pots, but I'm, like I said, in my space here, because it's not super huge, I don't have a whole lot of land in this place I'm at. I'm not going to be growing maples unless it's across the street. And then I have to protect them from the deer. That's why the willow I planted across the street, I've got a little makeshift greenhouse on top of it with a rock. And I go over there every day and I check on it. And so far, I think it's established itself that it will winter over and then come back next spring. So, yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, maples are also poisonous to horses too, especially the red maple. But I definitely would have spotted out a couple. We have sugar, like 2 or 3 sugar maples on our property, and I was going to look into the maple syrup. Didn't come this winter,
Yum.
but we'll see.
That would be nice.
Mhm.
Now, do you
Anything
have
to
to
get you outside.
do you have to protect your plants and your trees during the winter time?
No, only the ones in pots, because if the roots freeze, the plant dies. But all the ones in the ground, they're all for the, and I mulch well, and mulch really makes a big difference. As long as the roots don't freeze, your plants are fine. So, I mean, we have had some unseasonably harsh cold winters, where some plants do die in the ground, but it's kind of rare. They all seem to come back, even if they do struggle and they were kind of stressed out from a little bit too much cold. You can tell they still seem to be coming back because I am just so good with mulching them and caring for them. They want to come back.
They want your loving touch.
They're my
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just said they're my babies. Like I look around my garden and at all my trees and I feel so much love for them, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I could see a difference with me watering the plants and having someone else doing it at a time I couldn't do it. And they were just watering the plants. I was loving the plants, and there was a difference.
Nice.
So it's interesting to see that.
Yeah, my neighbor actually has 2 beautiful cherry trees. They've been established there. In fact, I don't think they were even grafted. I think they were planted from seed like long ago. And they just moved in last year, and these 2 gorgeous cherry trees produce every year that I've noticed. I mean, I've only been here 2 years, but I come back to visit because I have family here. And over the years, and when they moved in, they chopped one down because they didn't want to deal with it. And she had already told me I could pick as much cherries as I wanted from the tree. So I did last year. And then when she chopped it down last year, this year, because those 2 plants were planted together and I know that they were connected, when that tree got chopped down, the other one just failed to produce very well. It was the first year. It just was looking sickly. It just didn't thrive this year because its buddy was gone. It's horrible. Like people don't realize, and they just chopped it down because they didn't want to deal with the mess, and they don't eat fruit. So, and I was like, I will go there. I will pick it all. Like, just give me a few days. Like, and so, I don't know. It's sad that people don't really have that connection with nature anymore, and they don't try and work with nature. They're just against nature all the time. It's like if it's in your way, you just take it out, or if you don't like the wasps, you just kill them. Like it's like, and people are shocked when they come to my place because like I'll be sitting there eating my watermelon and the wasps will be landing on me, but they know me. They actually know me, and they know that I feed them all that compost, and they're not aggressive towards me at all. And people are shocked. They're just like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I don't mind sharing a bit, and they're not bothering me too much, and they're insects. They have a purpose. Like,
That is so wonderful you say that, because I have wasps at my front door and at my garage door, and I call them my guard wasps. And they literally, like, they do not bother us at all. But if anybody else will come around, they start buzzing around them. And I just let them be. They never bother us, and they return every single year. And I think that the only one that survives the winter is the female or the queen. All other wasps die. They only live for the summer.
Oh.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that either. But yeah, we have them at our garage and everything, and they're our guard wasps.
Yeah, they have this intelligence, like I can see it in them, like, and it's amazing, like, because my compost is just teeming with wasps and butterflies and grasshoppers, and they all like, and I even watch them, and like the wasps don't, they all have a symbiotic relationship, and the wasps know who I am. They know that I'm feeding them. They know my scent. Like they're just so they're protective. Like there's, if you're good to them, they'll be good to you. It's like, yeah.
Absolutely. I've even been known to bring some, if I see one out when it's still a little bit too cold out and they can't fly, I bring them in my house, and people think I'm so strange. And I'm like, it's okay. We'll come back soon. And they do. It's so funny. And I even had one that was in the pool, and we got him out, and I just kept blowing lightly on him. And I probably did it for like 5 minutes, and he came back and he took off. And I was like, oh my gosh, see, everything matters. I mean, no matter how big or how small. And I truly believe that we're the guardians of this earth, and we are to protect it. We're the strongest beings here with, like, our consciousness, and we're the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
So I really think that we need to really be the caretakers of this earth.
I fully agree. A friend of mine, John Crawford, I was telling him how I'm always taking the insects out of my dog's water dish, because she has a giant one. Like I give her a lot of water, and and there's always something in it that I have to rescue. And he's like, oh, just put a stick in it and they'll crawl out. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? And so she's got a stick in her water dish, and the insects, hardly any of them are drowning now.
Oh, that's fantastic. I rescue ants every day out of the horse water trough. And they're just in there floating around. And so I have to stand there every day. And I do, like, I'll be like, all right, fine, I'm standing here until you all are out. And so I do. But every day it is like something like that. And every day I'm like, fine, I'll do it.
Every day I'm releasing a new mouse, because I catch mice in my house, but I catch them in the live trap with a little peanut butter. And then every morning I go out for my morning walk, and I go and I release it somewhere far away from my house.
My mom does that. She has a little cage she puts them in, and then she feeds them until she gets like 4 of them, and then she releases them together just so they're not alone.
That's a good idea. I don't know if I'll take it that far, but
that's so funny how we all are really the same.
yeah. I pulled over on the side of the road the other day. I actually put it on my stories, but I couldn't believe I was doing this. There was a spider that made a web in my outside car mirror on my door. Like it made a web there. And I was like, oh, it's such a nice spider. And I start driving, and I have to drive at high speeds around here because it's all highway, because it's rural living. So everywhere you go is like at least an hour away. And I started driving, and the spider's flapping, and it's outside of my car. And I'm like, oh no, I'm like, this is horrible. And I actually pulled over to the side of the road. And then I like took the spider off the mirror, and I put it on a rock, and I said goodbye to it.
Yep, that's exactly what we would do too. Oh yes, we're all the same.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we are past the top of the hour, and I think with all this beauty, it was a good way to end this podcast. I want to thank you, Mariah, for being here, and maybe we do this again sometime.
Yeah, that would be great. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Please do. And Mariah, below is in the show notes is my link tree. So please just send me an email through that, and I'll get these sent out to you.
Okay, I'll have to maybe find it on YouTube, because right now I'm just on a Zoom, and I'll find it.
Or I will, if not, if I don't hear from you, then I'll look for you too. And then
Okay.
we'll eventually
Yeah,
find
we
each other. But
definitely have to
thank you
connect.
so much. And thank you everyone in the chat. And thank you, Toni, for holding this wonderful show together.
Yeah, thank you, Toni. You just gained a new listener over here.
Well, thanks everyone for being here. I hope you enjoy it, and much love to you, Mariah, and to Sarah. And I love you all. Until the next time.
Thank you, Toni.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.